Well, I just hope this damn thing works because I've had problems with technical glitches at this point. Excuse me, Weaver, John C., Roseman, California. What's going on, guys? Oh, I'm not exactly a happy camper, especially when I have technical glitches happening left and right, and I can't seem to get my damn computer working right. I was checking the news feeds these days, and I was trying to do a video concerning about racism. The hardest, one of the major third rails to talk about these days is something uglier and disgusting close to the human soul at this point over here is trying to shine a light on our dark side of our nature and our dark side of our personality, because I'm not going to say it's becoming more and more prevalent. That's an understatement at this point. It's getting more and more attention these days, and a lot of people keep saying that it shouldn't happen. Well, technically, speaking, they're right. And the problem is, when I keep putting things in a historical context at this point over here, see how far back the damn thing goes. It goes back a hell of a long time, even before recorded history. It seems that humanity has a problem with its own self. We're self-destructive, narcissistic, egotistical, sorry sons of bitches. To put it bluntly, we're racists. We can't stand seeing differences in everybody else because we have to think we're morally superior. We've got a mental block in our head built into our genetics a hell of a long while ago. We have to feel like we're going to be morally superior to everybody else. Therefore, we have to denigrate everybody. Every way, shape, or form. Dehumanize them. And strip every defensive barrier they've got. Everything that makes them human. Doesn't matter what kind of feelings that they've got. It only matters that the bully wins. It's a bully situation we've got ongoing at this point over here. We have gotten so desensitized. I was trying to find the right words for the opposite of sensitive. How about the opposite of that one? Desensitive. Desensitive to every form of human suffering. We become jaundiced to everything. And we do this because we don't want to see it. We don't want to see the darkness inside of ourselves. We express it, we feel it, but we have no empathy or remorse. I look at the people online, I look at people in person, I'm hearing stories coming from different sources left and right, and it never ceases to amaze me, and it also never ceases to disgust me, and it also just puts me into a catatonic state. I have to say that. And I'm also going to say this, that everybody is racist. In one form or another. Despite your objections that you're going to be putting up at this point over here, hear me out. We have been this way even before, as I said, for recorded time, because we can't stand seeing anybody who's a lot different than us. We can't stand their religion. We can't stand their belief systems. We can't stand their skin color, their talk, their walk, their likes or dislikes. We also don't like it when we get dissed all the time, disrespected. Especially when we get around people who are totally different from us, and we'd like to get to know the other person, but we get disrespected. Mainly people just put their mental and physical hands in front of the face and say, talk to the hand. I don't want to talk to you. You're different. You're not me. You're not my race. You're not my belief, race, color, creed, religion, nothing. Get the hell out of here. And we carry that with us in one form or another. I say this because I know I'm racist. I say it right here, right now in public. I'm racist. Putting this out there. I'm racist. Why? I know my mother and my grandmother would probably say I wasn't born that way, and I'll probably have to say, yeah, it was in my genetics. My grandmother couldn't stand Mexicans. She couldn't stand Latinos. I don't know if she ever hardly stood blacks or not. Yet we had a family that we adopted into our married clan a long time ago that helped us out a great deal, and they were Creole. And they were of colored skin, sweetest dispositions. And I grew up making them as part of my family. And because of life and everything else hits, we kind of get separated after a time. We still try to keep in contact with each other, but it's kind of hard. But even though I see the differences in front of me, I even see the kids being differently colored that they had. But the thing is, I keep looking at her face. It's still family. I don't see the differences. Yeah, I know there are differences. My brain is not registering this damn thing. However, I look in the apartment complex I live over here. There's major differences going around all over the place. And I see the racism constantly there. I'm also influenced by it. But I also see that once I look past the damn racism, I'm looking at human beings for a change. Yeah, they do have skin colors. Yeah, they are different than I am. But the one thing they share, they're human. They're human beings. And that's the thing that got to me. Back in the 80s and early 90s, I was watching a lot of comedians. Hell, I'm going to put that on the side right now. I just had a thought regarding this, but follow this one, okay? Richard Pryor, George Carlin. Different comedians, not to mention, I have to say this one, Bill Cosby. Robin Williams. A whole slew of them out there, even Jerry Lewis. They had different sticks in different times, in different methods and different ways. They were the product of their own ages and how they related to people. And a lot of them treated people fairly and decently enough. Some of the routines that I've heard from Carlin stuck with me for a hell of a long while. Screwed around with my head a bit on how I'm supposed to be looking at different people these days and what terminology we use to describe the people, even to the most vulgar and disreputable. Despicable, I should have said as well. And hearing this back in the 80s and 90s, I was too damn young and naive to understand anything of it. Let alone basic human rights, or basically how to treat people as people. But I was also raised not to treat them hostile or otherwise. I went to school in different multi-ethnic environments. And yes, one particular elementary school I went to for a few years to complete education, I was in a purely Latino area in the San Fernando Valley. A school called Canterbury in a town called Arleta, right next to Pacoima and San Fernando area in Van Nuys. Racially mixed, but mostly Latino and black in my area. Very few whites. And there was also Orientals. But I really didn't feel uncomfortable until I actually had problems with getting picked on at school because I was a token white boy. I had Latinos talking in their language, of Spanish. I had blacks avoiding me like crazy, because I was white. It was all how they were brought up and raised. And I go to church across the street from my house. I see the whites going there, but not many Latinos or anybody else. And yet around my area, I'm surrounded by the opposite. So I was being influenced during that time. And how to fear and how to hate. And how to avoid. And yet I had friends who were different than I am. And it was conflicting at that time. Do you hate the race or do you hate the people themselves, the individuals? I had to make that distinction. I grew up in a neighborhood earlier than that, before I moved into Arleta, in a place called North Hollywood. And it wasn't a white area, it was all mixed. There was a lot of racial mixture there. And I didn't feel threatened. Well, except for the neighborhood thugs in the area, that's about it. They lived in projects across the street, I didn't. But they came across different people and they wanted to create problems with a lot of people. It's amazing how some neighbors will come together and help you out when you can. And I had to learn how to be tolerant of people when I was that small and that young. And when I said before I got older and moved to Arleta, things had changed. I went into busing and right into another neighborhood that had very mixture of minorities, but not that much. School called Patrick Henry Junior High in Granada Hills. Got to the point where I moved into a neighborhood that didn't have that racial quality. Didn't have the racial mixture. I was in the midst of drug users. Screw the gangs. We had people selling guns and drugs in my neighborhood. And right by a high school, that felt like a damn prison. Because we did have busing over there. And we did have racial tensions. How you grow up and how you learn things like this. Meanwhile, I'm watching comedy specials left and right growing up. And as an adult, I'm learning more and more the differences of what I should have been paying attention to, but never had the context. You're watching 50 comedies, 1950s comedies. You didn't see the racial tension all that much. Censors are pretty damn clear about keeping things off screen. 60s, not so much. 70s, what censors? Because now you see the racial tensions coming out at this point over here, but then you see people making fun of themselves and trying to be more interactive with each other, with different races. And you get to see how people are trying to treat each other on screen, trying to laugh at each other. Of course, everybody else was laughing at All in the Family, Archie Bunker and his damn attitude, for almost 10 years, until they pulled him off. My God. I couldn't deal with that. Everyone laughed about it. But then you had the movies out there trying to demonstrate this damn thing. But they're also trying to make fun of it as well. There was nothing fun about racism. But they were trying to give you that impression that there is nothing wrong with racism. But there is something wrong with it. Because you're segregating. You're showing yourself to be more of elitist than anybody else. And who the hell do you think you are? Are you better than anybody else? To be honest with yourself, are you honestly morally and physically superior to everybody else that you should be a god above them? Because that's what I've been seeing these days in these news reports throughout the past several years, and it's gotten even worse. It's gotten even worse. We have racial tension going on. We have religious tension going on. before 9/11 hitting, we still had that kind of tension. And we just didn't bother to show it as much. After 9/11, it seems like everything else exploded. And for the past 20 years, that's all I've been seeing is more and more of the racial tension, the more and more of the uglier side of our natures coming out. This shirt I wear, United Federation of Planets. Being a Star Trek fan, there was a show that kind of helped me to understand about differences. There was a writer named Gene Roddenberry. You're going to be racial and technical about it. Yes, he was white. He served military. He served in the police force in Los Angeles. He was a writer. He created Star Trek. He wanted to create something as venturous as Horatio Hornblower and Wagons Train to the Stars, but he also wanted to promote something about he kept believing in. Humanity was a hell of a lot better, and they're going to show themselves to be a hell of a lot better in the future. That's why he created something as Star Trek. People striving for better. In the past 50 years, they're still struggling trying to get that damn message across. Because they're still mixing things up left and right. But they're also showing a hell of a lot of our own natures in different formats. You gotta love writers, okay? You gotta love writing. Because in books, magazines, and different medias, we are trying to show who and what we are, both positive and negative nature. We are trying to show that either we're better or we're not better. And doing this, it demonstrates something of our own natures, because we're identifying traits. We can identify what's going on. We're saying, hey, I understand what he's talking about. That means you're clicking into what they're talking about. And now you're getting some of the messages that's going on here. It's called context. You're putting things into context. Things that you've already experienced and watched in whatever format. You're putting it into context so you can actually understand what's going on, what seems to be morally right, what seems to be morally screwed up. The values that we've learned from our families growing up, they were trying to tell us something. Trying to tell us, don't judge a book by its cover. You don't judge a person by the color of the skin, but by the actions of their heart. And these days, it's basically you're coming up to a person and you're going to be denigrating and let crap on them. You should know what the person is at that point. You could make a dumbass remark or a smartass remark of saying, have you taken your Xanax today? Do you need your straitjacket? Do you need help for me to get you to a psychologist? Of course, saying that to people who are pissed off at you because they've got a burr up their ass doesn't work, but it's a nice thought. What I'm trying to get at this point over here is, it's not right seeing all this stuff on screen and therefore we have to hide from it. No, we can't. We have to keep seeing this in ourselves. We have to keep seeing this darker nature in ourselves at this point being broadcasted. Because right now, what I'm trying to say is, we are racist, and we have to stop this shit one way or another. We have to keep treating each other like human beings for a minute. And I am putting this out there. When I hear a news reporter almost crying her eyeballs out because she had been slandered due to her race, due to her skin color, due to the physical features. Some people of different racial backgrounds assumed a lot of stupid things about her, that she doesn't understand English, including a law enforcement officer. And it's bad enough when I see this being shown to the people. We've seen it. We've seen marches left and right. We've seen shootings. We've seen police going crazy over people. People going crazy over police. This is not new. We keep telling people to stop this shit. We're not going to stop this shit because it's ingrained into our genetics at this point over here. And it's not right. Science also told us that there are certain things in our genetic history that we can still change by behaviors. Ongoing behaviors, ongoing thought patterns. And the thing of it is, we have to acknowledge it inside of ourselves that we are that ugly. And we also have to acknowledge that we also have choices. And those choices can tell people whether or not we're a decent human being or the slimiest, sorry sons of bitches around here. Now for right now, I know I'm a slimy, sorry son of a bitch. Because I have thought, I have felt, and it's not right. It's not right on any level. The thing of it is, I've got people over here that like me for who and what I am, and I like them, despite whatever they are. And I'm not going to say what the hell they are, except for one thing, that they're human beings. However, there are other human beings who don't like me because I'm white. Well, I can't help the color scheme at this point over here, but regarding my personality and how I treat them, that's my own choice. But I choose not to go after them anyway. I just choose to leave them alone. They want to stew in their own damn cesspool, be my guest. I, on the other hand, have always the choice of treating people better. Because I expect that for me. Do unto others as you would do unto them. Golden rule. Problem is, we're having a hard time understanding this on every level.